Ready? Awesome. So welcome everyone that's coming on live to the Zoom and those that will be seeing this recording. We're doing a book club talking about beauty in the breakup. And we're here with Julie Tuton, author, artist, and mom of two, talking about how this came to be and also sharing some of the tools and really being the invitation to look at the ease that can be created and, completing on anything, relationship, businesses, with ease and stepping into what's next and greater for you and what's true for you. So welcome, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyndi. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yes, and everyone else.
And the other beauties who will be joining maybe later or maybe watching the replay. I know a lot of people registered.
Yes.
It's a sticky subject. I know I didn't actually really want to write this book because it's a sticky subject, but the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, watched and sort of facilitated me through my divorce, my breakup, and it was so kind and so easy. And he said, you need to write the book, get to work. So I did, and it took a number of years. As much as these tools can create ease for people, it's one of those places where people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about thinking about their relationship not being what they'd like. It's like you just want to work harder and you want to try harder to get the other person to be happy so that eventually you can be happy. So we have it all backwards. And I think this book is sort of a guide. It's a 6-step process to finding out what you would like and starting to step into being happy yourself. And that invites the people around you to be happy too. And sometimes you don't break up in the process. Sometimes you actually create a greater relationship. I know that is one of the things that you were saying, Cyndi.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons I also wanted to bring this back. I kept reminding you about this book, and you're like, oh yeah, I wrote a book. What else?
Oops.
Because you're creating so many things on a day-to-day. You do classes, you do Facebook Lives, you have your boutique, and you're a mom, and so you do so much. And this book kept popping out, for me to look at. And I remember when Julie first wrote the book in 2017, I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to have to confront and look at my relationship because, this is my second marriage and I think I got it right this time. And I don't want to look and see maybe I didn't get it right because I did have some complaints, and some issues that were coming up. But at the same time, I was like, it's not that big of a deal. I could just, they're little things. I could just let it go and kind of deal. And then after a while, I was like, no, this doesn't work for me. And so I started asking Julie some questions, and she's like, you can read my book. And some of the things that I did read, because she had given it to me a long time ago, she's like, I can facilitate you, or you can read the. So I did. I started reading the book. I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I started doing some of the practices, and they're so simple. And it's really looking at not so much what the other person is doing wrong or what you think, but where you are not choosing for you and you're not doing what's true for you. And as soon as I started doing that, it seemed like he changed. It was like, what happened? This is not the same person I was just, talking to a week ago, But I think that's where we start cutting off our own joy because we're so focused. It's what we're focused on. So,
and it's definitely a wake-up call when you start to realize like what makes you so upset in your relationship, and you keep thinking that it's them. But if you actually look at it, you're angry with yourself for not choosing something different.
Mhm.
or for not voicing what it is that you want, or for not even having the time or the space to get to know what you'd like.
Mhm.
And so this is really an exploration of what's true for you, and to learn a navigation system so that you can make the choices that will create the future you'd love to be living, not just floating around in the stream and, you know, just going whatever direction the wind blows. It's more like, wow, where am I going? What would I like my life to be, or my relationship to be, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. These tools are tools from Access Consciousness that allow you to change literally anything. And the way they're organized into these steps, um, it gives you a number of tools targeted for a specific issue. And it doesn't have to be about relationship and letting go of relationship. It could be changing anything. It could be losing a loved one. It could be getting fired from a job, or choosing to leave a job. And it could be letting go of the old you and stepping into the new you. And it's organized in these steps. Like the first step is unwinding. So everywhere you've mixed you with your relationship, your job, your old version of yourself, or whatever it is, you've got to separate yourself out to know what's actually true for you, so that you can start to move forward.
Mhm.
And you can't move forward dragging all of that stuff together as you, because it's actually not you. And one of the basic tools in Access is, when something's not true for you, like when there's a lie involved, you can't change it. So you wonder why you can't change the things in your life. It's because we have them all lumped together. When you create that space and you unwind, then you can go, oh, this thing over here, bye-bye.
Mhm.
And then have more awareness for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because when you say, you know, you look at what's true for you, I know when I started looking at what was true for me, and I'm sure maybe others can relate, you almost are fighting for what's true for me, you know, like I'm fighting for the things that I want, or I'm resisting the things that, you know, they think I should do or should have or whatnot. So it becomes this kind of like push and pull, push and pull. But then you said something to me and it was like, well, can you choose for you and include them? And I'm like, huh? What? Like at first I was like, what is include? How can I? But they don't want that for me. But it's kind of but it works. I don't know how it worked, but when I did include them, it was like, and even when I'd have these conversations in my mind, including them, not like, well, I'm going to do this and it doesn't matter what you think, because that was what I was, that was where I was then, sometimes still now. but for the most part, it's really including my relationships, whether it's my family or whether it's my husband or whether it's in my business. I mean, including the business, including the people in my business, and, you know, to make the choices that are true for me. But also including them, having conversations where it's like, hey, you know, this is what I'm choosing, you know, what's there for you, having those conversations. It just created something so different in my relationships.
Yes, it's so funny how when you reframe things as your choice to do something instead of, well, I have to do this and now I'm going to fight against it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole paradigm shift.
It really
Yeah.
is.
So um, some of the stories in the book too are of people that I was working with and facilitating. And I think there was one story that I wrote about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because there are several people that I've worked with throughout the years who actually created their relationship greater. They did not break up and they weren't sure. They were like, what do I want? This isn't working. How do I change it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the premise of this book, is that you don't have to know what you want from the beginning, like you can just be like, wow, I wonder what else is possible, and what is it going to take to create my life as happy and fun and joyful? Is it going to take breaking up, or can we change it?
Mhm.
And you know what? It's up to each person.
Mhm.
Gary would say it takes two people to create a marriage or a relationship, and it takes two people to end it. And if you start making different choices, they may start choosing with you again.
Mhm.
And creationship instead of,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
obligationship.
Yes. Oh my gosh, totally. Maintenance-ship. Like, and I would notice the more I was choosing for me what was well, true for me, basically, and doing things maybe off on my own or with him, but really choosing what I would like to do or creating things, events for us to do together. Because before I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't plan anything and just go with the flow. And I'm like, wait a minute, what do I want to create? What do I want to do? And
Mm-hmm.
then I found the more I was choosing and what was true for me or things to do, I would find my husband would do things that were fun and he wanted to do on his own. Like, oh, that's so cool. But I think we all are stuck with a certain um, what marriage is, I guess, the whole spectrum of what a wife and a husband should be or what they should do or how it should be. So we're
Yeah.
stuck in this frame instead of like, well, we could totally choose something totally different. Like, what else is possible?
Yes.
Could be
All
totally
the
fun.
actions and the expectations. And
It doesn't have to be work. It can actually be
like,
fun.
how many times did you try to project at your husband to do something? Like, I want him to do this. I want him to do this. And you just project, and you expect, and then they don't do it, and you get pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
You start judging them, and you start creating separation,
Yep.
and you reject every other thing that they're going to do, not because you want to, because you're stuck in this cycle. So we have tools to change that.
Yep.
It's a crazy thing that occurs. It's, yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, you can be the one, you can be the conscious one in the relationship and change it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for both of you if you clear your point of view.
Say more about that when you clear your point of view.
Well, if you project and expect at someone, or even if he's projecting and expecting at you, you can feel that. Everybody knows what that feels like. It sucks, and all you want to do is resist it and not do. But if you change and start being grateful for the person in your life and start asking for what you'd like, oh, I love it when you da 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 da. I love it when you open the door for me. I love it when you look at me like that. And you start telling them what you like. That's not projecting or expecting. It's giving them little hints. And how many of you like to hear, oh, I love it when you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes you want to do it more because you're like, oh my gosh, I got something right finally. So it creates this closeness and this engagement rather than the projection expectation creating the separation. So it's simple things like that, but it's definitely a process. You need to come clear with yourself. Like, do you even want this job, this old definition of yourself, this relationship? What is it that you do want? I remember when I first started coming to Access classes, one of the classes was called something like Living Your Dreams or something. And I remember we were all sitting, there was like 100 people on the first row, and I'm like ready to write down all my notes because I have no idea. And Gary says, so what would you like? What would you like to create? And nobody said anything. We were all like, aren't you supposed to tell us? We don't know what we want. We've given ourselves up our entire lives since we were 6. I don't know what I want anymore. So I should re-listen to that class. I probably have the recordings. So it's like, you know, taking some time for yourself. And this is a great time while we're all quarantined to take time and to go for walks and to just start wondering, wow, what is it that I loved when I was 6? What is it that I loved? What is it that I've come here to be that I've lost because I've focused so much on making other people happy and resisting everything that people wanted me to do? And so really getting a sense for your particular energy and what you've come here to create. And it's a process. It doesn't just necessarily pop. And then going through the steps of this book many times. Like, it's not just a read the book and you're done. I've used this book many times, just for clarity and for finding the right tool that's going to work. It's not really the right tool, but the correct tool that's going to work. Because in Access Consciousness classes, there's thousands of tools, and it can be overwhelming for a lot of people. So having them organized in these steps, if you're feeling like you're really intertwined, you can use these few tools that I've listed and work your way out and create some space for yourself. And then you can move to the next step. And you can jump steps and go back, depending on what it is for you that isn't changing or that's in your way from creating your lighter and brighter future.
Very, very cool.
Welcome everybody else joining in. And if you have questions, you can type it in the chat. I also wanted to, there was a quote in here somewhere by Gary, and I'm just trying to find where it is.
Yeah, there was even a moment today where our conversation got very heated, and I caught myself like, oh my gosh, I'm totally reacting to something that I'm making. And he was even letting me know, like, you're making this up. And I go, no, I'm not. It's so real. And I just know. And I'm like, okay, so there's one thing to be aware of something. And there's another thing when you react to something, it's distracting you from your awareness. I think I got it right this time, and I don't want to look and see maybe I didn't get it right, because I did have some complaints. Okay, there's one thing to be aware of something, and there's another thing when you react to something, it's distracting you from your.
Sorry.
It's okay. I was like, that was me speaking again. So yeah, we'll talk my future self. No, but just noticing where I got distracted by my emotion, and that's one of the things also that you talk about, like where you get distracted instead of really pausing and going, okay, what is this? What's true here? Because it got really heavy, and when it's heavy, you know, that's one of the things you also share about light and heavy. It got really heavy, and I was like, there's a lie there. And I was like totally like spinning in that direction. And then when I just paused, I was like, I'm just making this up. Like, what the heck? You know, it's like not even true. So I paused and I was like, okay, what do I want to create here? And it just totally shifted the energy, but it was all, I had choice there in that matter, where I wanted to put my attention. And it just went away. It was like, so cool.
That's amazing. That really is. Because like you could take that and be pissed off for 3 months.
Yes.
How many people create or invent things to create separation so that they don't have to talk to their partner or, you know, their boss or whatever the issue is. and then blame them for it.
Oh
We're
gosh,
really cute and manipulative, aren't we?
Super. So I'm like,
yeah,
no, not worth it.
Right. So one of the clearings that they've been using a lot recently is, what invention are you using to create the problems you are choosing?
Mm.
And it's just so clear, like, oh my gosh, every single problem is something that I'm inventing, because it doesn't have to be a problem. It can be a possibility for
Mm.
choosing something different, or recognizing this isn't working,
Mhm.
or looking at, oh, I've never actually decided to create my life before.
Mm.
Oops. And it's not wrong, it's just for you to become aware of. Every single thing in our lives is something we've created.
Mhm.
Everything. I was telling my son that the other day. He had a bike injury, and he was going to go get an X-ray or an MRI, and I was like, well, what if we also take you to a chiropractor and do some of these other things? And I said, don't listen to me. Don't listen to your dad. Don't listen to the doctors. What do you know? Listen to you, because this is your life and it's your body. And whatever you're choosing now is going to create how your body is for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
So don't just push it off. And he's like, wow, that's a lot of pressure. I'm like, but it's your life,
Mhm.
So take your life into your hands
Mhm.
and make it great. Don't blame it on other people if it's not. If you're not having fun, who's choosing that? They're not making you choose it.
Mhm.
We're choosing it. So we have to look at our choices and see if we still like them. And if we don't, we can change them.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
amazing how quickly things change when we change our choices. Okay. People are messaging about the Zoom link, but they'll just have to get the replay.
Okay. Did you find the quote?
I did. If you didn't do divorce from the anger it took to create separation, but from the possibility of what separation could create, what really could be created that we haven't considered? So this is what we're talking about. It's like, you don't have to have a reason. You don't have to create anger. You don't have to judge and separate from your partner to realize that things aren't working. You can choose something different. And years ago, I remember hearing Gary talk about the biggest toxic waste on the planet is anger, rage, fury, and hate. And I thought about how many, like, even in just the United States, half of the people who are married are getting divorced. It's a 50% and rising divorce rate. And most every single divorced couple is doing this anger, rage, fury, hate, blame, shame, regret, guilt, all this stuff, all these distractor implants. And that is not very kind energy to the planet. So I wanted to create something that would change that would dissipate the anger and allow people to have a different choice. So, okay, the relationship isn't working, no problem. You can move on, but you can move on with kindness, or you can make it greater with kindness. And it's just a choice. So this book is really just a very simple beginning book that can be quite advanced, but it's for beginners to choose and create their lives different so that it works for them and so that they're happier.
Yeah, because there's things in here that you're like, oh my goodness, like it's so simple as furniture. Like you don't think about, because this is my second marriage. And I remember there was one piece of furniture that I kept from my previous marriage. And I just loved it. It was a piece that I chose, I bought, and it was just like one of my favorite pieces. So I was like, I'm taking this,
Mm-hmm.
And plus it was the lightest thing I could fit in my car, my little Honda. And I remember bringing it to, well, when I started living with my husband, my boyfriend at the time, and he liked it. It was a beautiful piece, but it always reminded me of my ex and our apartment and our time together, which was, there were great moments, but then there was a lot of upset that went with it. So I was like, I finally got rid of it. And that's one of the things you also talk about in the book, the things that we carry on, not just energetically with our relationships, but also, emotional, physical things. So that was one of the things I was like, okay, I gotta let this go.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a Facebook Live. Was it today? I can't remember anymore. Maybe it was the other day, about the elegance of living. I think it was the other day.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, how do you do that? And I said, well, in one of the beginning classes, Gary was saying, take everything that you don't love and let it go in your house. So we did this whole clear out of our house and got rid of our everyday dishes and used the china and just had everything that was wonderful and nurturing and made me feel happy. And I remember, like, a few years later, like, we would do it every 6 months to keep up with it. And several years into being an access facilitator, both of us, we were selling our house, and we were putting things out on the sidewalk and having a big yard sale. And my husband started walking up the steps, and I realized, oh my God, I don't want him. Don't want him in the house. Huh? That was an interesting awareness.
Like, where are you going? I'm getting rid of things.
Oh,
Oh my
so
gosh.
it was like, yeah, and I had been like back and forth, because ending a 20-year marriage is not something you just wake up one day and go, okay, I'm doing it. Like, it's something that, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process. And actually, had I gone with my awareness, it would have been like that. But for most people, it's a process. And it started coming apart, and then it would go back together and come apart and go back together. And I don't know if anybody else has gone through that. Should I, shouldn't I? There are tools in the book for that too. Mm-hmm. Looking at your future and perceiving the energetic possibilities with your choices. And that takes a certain amount of courage and bravery to actually ask those questions and look and get the awareness too. So a lot of times we put up our barriers because we've decided, well, sticking it out is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Or, I have children, or I don't know what I'll do or where I'll live, and all these things. Those are just justifications for not choosing. Mm-hmm. Once you get an awareness of, like, moving on is actually going to create more, and you make the choice, the universe starts bringing you different possibilities, and you realize that when you're choosing what's going to expand your life, you are supported by every element of the universe. Mm-hmm. And you actually can follow the energy, and you will be fine. You will be great. And if you go against your awareness, it will hurt and be so uncomfortable and unhappy. So you'll know if you're going with your awareness or against your awareness. And it's okay if you mess up and you go back and forth. It's okay.
Well, that's what happened. Now that you say that, like in my first marriage, that's what happened. I mean, we were high school sweethearts, we knew each other since I met him when I was 9, first kiss. And it was like, wow, we're finally getting married. I mean, but it was even a rocky relationship, breakup, makeup, very trauma drama. Mm. But, we got married at 25 and we're like, woo, living in the city. It was beautiful, fun. But when we finally chose to separate, because there was just we really got, like, we were so different, different needs, different wants. And we were just like, this not going to work. It was hard. And I was like, no, I got to make it work. We have so much history. We've been together since we were little. It's like, oh my gosh, high school sweethearts. And we can make it work. Went to counseling and talked to, therapists, did some sex classes, it's like, what else can we do? Not that sex is an issue, but it's like, whatever. And I got like, I was forcing it. I was forcing the relationship. And that's exactly what you're talking about when you're saying it was so painful to stay. It was so painful and like uncomfortable. We'd be sitting together and be like so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we were like, it was just not, there was no future for us. As much as I tried to like make it work, and I can see that, yeah, I had to make a choice. And it's like, we both had to make a choice, but it was hard. I didn't want to, So.
Yeah, it's really interesting though, how many of us, when pressed, when asked, with somebody who doesn't have a point of view about it, you find out that you actually know. You know when the relationship was over, even if it was before you even got married. Like, that was one of the questions that Gary asked me. Oh my goodness. 19 years into my marriage, he said, when did you leave the relationship? 6 months before or 6 months after? And I said, oh my God, it was 3 months after we started dating. I had this awareness of being in a restaurant and having dinner with him and looking at him across the table and thinking, this guy is a total bozo. What the fuck am I doing? And then a girlfriend came up to the table and was like, oh, Julie, who's this? And like, just because she was there and saying, oh, he's handsome and whatever, I brushed all that shit aside and re-solidified everything. And 3 years later, we got married. I'm not the brightest person, I'm just saying. And we stayed married 20 years.
But how much do we cut off our awareness with lots of things due to what other people say or what other people comment about whatever choice is ahead of us, whether it's a job, whether it's buy an outfit, because someone else likes it, but you're like, yeah, maybe. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And you're like, okay. And then you take it home and you never wear it, so things like that. It's like, where do we solidify what's true for us because someone else
right
loves it?
Right. We disregard, we never check in with ourselves. What's true for me? What's true for me? It's always like, what do they want? What do they like? What's what's the fairy tale? What's the fantasy? Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, we were good friends and it looked like a great relationship. It was. It just didn't work for me.
Yes. And that's not wrong. And I think we make ourselves wrong when there's a really great guy, like, great guy, kind, joyful being, but it's like, well, it's not what's right for me, it doesn't make you wrong or bad for wanting to choose something different. And yeah.
And how much do we stop ourselves from expanding and growing so that we don't leave the other person behind, or so that they don't feel uncomfortable because we're changing? And that's another thing. It's like you blame the other person, or you blame your kids, or you blame somebody else for what you're not choosing. But when you actually get clear with yourself, okay, actually, I'd like to choose this, I'm choosing it, then it doesn't matter what the kids or the husband or the friends or the boss think or say. You're clear, you're choosing it, and then everything changes around you. And sometimes they're actually really happy for you and proud of you, and it brings you closer together. And sometimes it's the deal breaker, and okay, you're going to give up on your dreams and what you know that you've come here to be because somebody else is going to be unhappy. No.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's all of this is possible without the trauma and drama and the upset. And it doesn't have to be force and violent. It can be totally easy. What you can create can be totally beautiful, even when you're taking things apart.
It's kind of like when you're rearranging your room, you know, you're taking everything out, everything looks like a mess and it's just scattered everywhere, but you know you're going to create a great space and it's going to be like more beautiful than ever. It's kind of like that when you're going through the process of the steps that you go through, because it's like, oh, but then at the end you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like with my marriage right now, it's like, yeah, we're having so much fun, because at the beginning it was like work, and marriage is work, and and I'm like, I want to have fun, I want to play, I want to do things that are fun. Well, when I retire, that's when we create fun. I was like, excuse me, you want to plan our retire? I go, I want to retire now then. So it was literally planning my retirement in 5 years, like, you know, what, 8 years ago. Yeah, no, 13 years ago, 15 years ago. I was planning my retirement because that's when I'd start having fun. I was like, wait a minute. No, I want to have fun now. And so it's
Yeah.
just totally different. It's just, we're having so much fun. We're creating fun. We're including people in our fun. And yeah, it's amazing. Super grateful for the book.
Yeah. And it can get greater and greater and greater. It doesn't have to be static.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I could be me, and I could be goofy, happy, joyful me,
mm-hmm.
you know, because before I'd have to be like this, you know, serious. I don't do serious very well.
So yeah. So it's not even necessarily required to be in a relationship
Mm-mm.
to be able to use these steps. I mean, it really facilitates you not giving yourself up in any situation and having more clarity about what you have come here to be, what you'd like to create. If you don't have a clue, or you're not sure how to get there, or you're just like doubting what that is, these tools, these steps will guide you to living your lighter, brighter future. Mm-hmm. It's just what naturally occurs. And it's actually quite fun. So it's possible to just get the book, read the book, and play with it yourself. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. But I've also created a 6-step guided transformation where we'll get together on Zoom for 6 different calls and work through the steps and have questions and facilitation to really create this space of walking you through your journey, like you're leading and I'm there with you. So that's going to be next month, I think, our first, or is it our second one? Yeah. So who's ready to create their lighter, brighter future? Who wants to come and play? Who has questions? Who dares ask a question?
Ask.
Anybody? I know there's actually a few more people on here, but they're like hidden from the Facebook.
You could still hear you. You could still talk.
You can still ask a question. You're totally anonymous.
Yes.
If you would like. Mm-hmm. Any questions? Any problems that you're trying to solve that aren't working? Nope. All right, well, then I'll just mention one other thing, that um, a portion of the proceeds from the book sales and from my classes in Beauty and the Breakup are being donated to Actions for Futures, which is a nonprofit to create more possibilities on the planet. So while my vision of dissipating the fear and the anger and all of that stuff that happens with divorce, I'm also contributing money and energetic contribution to the planet, just becoming a more thriving place and not at the effect of all this drama that we're creating. So
Very cool.
it just makes me happy. It's like, have you ever had a plant that, if you've been in an angry household, the plants usually die and they wither and die. But if you love your plants and you play nice music or you talk to them, they usually thrive. And the planet is a plant. So having more kindness on the planet and more caring and less of the anger and all of that will contribute to a beautiful, brighter future for all of us. So
I never thought of it that way. That is true.
do us all a favor and choose
Yes.
joy, please. Choose joy. Choose ease.
And our bodies too, Julie. Like our bodies, like I know for me, maybe I'll even post a picture of me and my husband, like when we're we looked old. We looked really old and a lot older than we do now. I feel like now I feel more youthful. I look more youthful. And we were literally, like, you could see our expressions in our face. We were not happy and it showed. And yeah, and it makes a difference in your relationships and with yourself and your body. Like you being the joy, you honoring you, being true for you, whether it's the clothes that you put on or, how when you look in the mirror, you acknowledge and appreciate your beauty and find something that you love. I mean, it all makes a difference, for the planet and for you.
Yeah. And like, don't wait for your partner to treat you the way you want to be treated. Start treating yourself the way you want to be treated, and treat them the way you'd like to be treated, and it will all come around. It's so interesting because so many people, they think they want to be treated nicely, but they treat themselves like shit. and you try to do something nice for them and they're like, no. It's like, okay, there's no opening here. So start treating yourself the way you would like to be treated and start opening the door to being able to receive that kindness from you. And then everybody else will actually be able to gift you those energies. It's the opposite of what we learned. It's okay. Our parents just didn't know.
We didn't know.
No.
Well, we had a sense of something different. I remember being little and like, I'm never getting married. I'm never, like there was a sense of like, I'm going to travel. But I think it was because of what I saw in the marriages. It was like, I don't want that. What else? If that's what marriage is, I don't want that.
Yeah. I remember thinking that I'm never going to get divorced because I didn't like what that was in my family. And I just thought that I would choose somebody that would actually work for me. And it did, I guess. Like it was 20 years of friendship. And it looked great to everybody else. We had like the best relationship out of everybody we knew. And
yeah, I remember. And I remember my sister when she got divorced, Sylvia. I mean, they literally had the kind of marriage I wanted, the kind of marriage that I thought like was not possible. I was like, what? Like they create together, they have fun together, they're friends, they adore each other. Like there was just like so much joy in the house, you know. I mean, there was a few things that I pointed out to her, but that was okay. That was just one little, but for the most part, it was like, oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. And I even lived with them for a little bit. So it was even like, wow, you know, the way they cared for me and nurtured me. And they were just an awesome couple. And when she said they were getting divorced, I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, what? I mean, it shattered a bit, but I got to see it's all choice. I mean, they were starting to want different things.
Yeah.
And they were starting to push and pull. And it's like, wow, okay. So I started like really looking and seeing and I was like, I don't know if I want to get married then.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, but now I get it's what you create, and it's an ongoing.
And this is an exercise in one of these steps that has you write down the characteristics that you'd actually like in your partner, and look at, you know, does your partner have those, and would asking them to basically have a leopard change its spots like, is that going to be a kindness to try to get them to be everything that you would like? Or is it actually kinder to separate and you have what you like and let them be who they are?
I just had this thought, like you go into a relationship and you kind of hear the guy go, oh man, she's amazing. There's just a few things here and there, but that can change. And then there's oh, he's so great. Like you could almost see the little bubble, you know, like, oh, he's so great. There's just a little, but I could change that. That's easy, you know, little fixer upper.
Yeah.
And they're both have these ideas. You know, we each have our own idea of the little flaws that they have that, you know, we can let that go, but it's really cutting off our awareness of what's really true for us. And then it just becomes this kind of battle between the two, who's right and who's wrong. Not fun.
Yep. So we brought up a lot of things. Hopefully that gives you a sense of what's possible and how to change it. And we invite you to read the book.
Yes.
It's very long. It's short. It's an easy read. Say it's kind of thin.
And I remember when I was reading it, I would read it at night and I would read it out loud with my husband. He'd fall asleep. Yes. Yeah. He'd fall asleep. And he'd question a couple of things, but I just kept reading and reading. Yeah. I read it with him.
Some people are a little nervous to get the book and bring it home if they are married, and it makes, you know, their partner like, whoa, what are you getting that for? But you know, don't let that stop you from finding out what's true for you.
Yeah.
And give it to your partner to read too, and let them have fun.
Yeah.
And your kids.
Yes. Great. And anybody, and I even gave it to someone that was getting married. For her bridal shower.
Don't divorce yourself when you're getting married.
This should be read at all. Yeah, this should be given to all new brides. No. Or like before they even take the plunge. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching, the people watching in the future. And reach out if you have questions, and we'll do another one of these at a different time zone to reach different continents, because I know this was not the greatest time for everybody. And send in your questions and join the guided transformation. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yes. Are you gonna post the link also with the group? Oh, cool. Promise
you'll get happier. Regardless of what you choose, you will get happier.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Cyndi. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone, for joining live, and thank you, everyone, for listening in the future.
Yay. Okay, I'm ending the recording. Bye.
Bye-bye.